Hey, Dr. Webster. This is my overview of my Google Classroom that I created for our signature assignment. So I chose as a curriculum the AP seminar course that I'll be teaching for the first time. And I also decided to begin at the very beginning, as Julie Andrews might sing, where this is a unit during the first 2 weeks of school. So this is the stream, and I'm just going to go to the beginning where I have my introduction and my overview and the title of the unit, why it's important, and then also the learning outcomes that I pulled from the course exam description that the College Board provides for the AP seminar course. I also have a link here to the daily exit tickets. One of the things that I think is really important is getting that like constant feedback from students. And so I have questions here that are mostly open-ended that I can use to plan the next day or the next couple of days in class, because I really want to have that real-time information to inform my planning. So I do have the end in mind. I do have the objectives or the learning outcomes, but I also want to know, like, where do I need to make tweaks in my curriculum? I also want to use the exit tickets as a way of helping kids connect like their prior knowledge to what we're learning about in class that might be new. This question here I thought was just kind of fun about, again, getting to know kids, but also being able to present some data. Like I can present the graph of this data. We could talk about graphs and like, what do we see here? What are the patterns? Things like that. Why does the class primarily think that their own diary might be somewhat credible, let's say, versus parent statements is not total lies? I don't know what their data would look like, but it'd be kind of fun to see. And then again, because this is the beginning of the course, like finding out what do kids want to learn or experience, I think that will tell me a lot about their goals that they have for the learning. So I'm going to switch over to the classwork page so that you can see how I organize this information by topic. So I have the summative assessment here, which we'll come back to, but then I also have research, communication styles, and decision making. And so for this module, like again, if I were using Canvas, I might organize this differently, but for the purposes of this assignment. And you can see how I have my resources. The embedded learning resources are here, primarily in this research section. I found some really cool resources. These 4 tiers of sources are from the University of Oregon. And this was something that actually was discussed at the AP conference, presenting kids with this information about how sources are tiered. And this is actually this learning leads to and is included in the summative assessment, because in the summative assessment, I ask kids to work as teams to research and present an answer to the question, like, how do we know that tier 1 and tier 2 sources are credible? So kind of getting into like more of the nuance and tension, where peer-reviewed academic publications are tier 1, but they're not all created equal. Or, articles from different places and books, like how do you know that those sources are credible and which ones carry more weight than others? So this is like that initial learning, and then it will build to the summative. So there's also this really amazing website that I found at a University of New Zealand, where it's several pages and it walks students through research skills. I really liked this one. And then some College Board materials. They have videos about the performance tasks, and this one specifically focuses on effective evidence. And then I wanted to pair it with Cornell Notes, where kids would watch the video and take notes. The solution fixation trap is an article and from Harvard Business Review, and kids will read this article after an activity that we're going to do that I'll discuss in just a second. So that actually comes after this other activity. So with regard to decision making and dynamics, there was this really cool exercise that I found about decision-making strategies for teams. And then there are some scenarios and they have to look through it. So this would be one of the formative assessments. Again, just sort of seeing how kids are talking about teamwork and how they are actually experiencing it in these scenarios. And then this assignment is based on that article that I mentioned. And let me show you. This was one of the Web 2.0 tools that I created using Canva, where I took the graphs from the article that represent their research, and kids would have to examine these graphs, and then the directions are to leave 2 sticky note comments, one that makes an observation and one that asks a question. So trying, and also I would have to explain, like, we're not evaluating or analyzing the information yet. You're just making an observation and asking a question, because we're going to get to the analysis part later. And then on the second page, again, from the same article, this graph compares high-performing teams to low-performing teams and like the different phases that they go through. So, so helping kids to analyze graphs, interrogate, let's say, while also learning about high-performing teams and what they look like and how they operate. And then the final page is more like a summary statement. So they would pretend they're a researcher who helped author the study, and they would have to write a takeaway piece of advice for someone who's read the article. So this is where we get to more of the synthesis of the information. And that would be, I could probably put this as like even an exit ticket, and that would tell me something about how each individual kid like understood these graphs and what their takeaway was. So after they do this activity, then they would read the article itself. And then we would talk about, like, how did the article answer the questions that you may have had? Did they observe the same things? We could have that discussion. With communication strategies, this was, I pulled from, maybe not. I pulled from Canvas, actually. Maybe I can click here, and used, sorry about that. I used Canva again, to create a presentation, basically just like lecture notes on different communication strategies. So let me go back one. I don't know why it's not pulling up, but I mean, it's really just a basic presentation about communication strategies. And then also learning about communication style and how you have different forms of communication styles. You could be passive, you could be aggressive, you could be passive aggressive, you could be assertive. And some simple examples, like how kids would identify, how they apply the definition to these examples. And then they can like work in small groups on that. And then my other Web 2.0 tool is Padlet. And this is where they would have a little bit of fun, but also, again, application. So because a lot of communication is nonverbal and facial expressions. And so the other activity focused more on verbal, like what people say. But for this challenge, the meme challenge, they have to find a meme where the facial expressions communicate what, the different, like passive or passive aggressive, that sort of thing. So then the final piece is the summative assessment. And again, stating the learning outcomes, the same ones that I stated at the beginning, because backward design, providing a little bit of context, like, okay, we've been learning about this, now we're digging deeper. The guiding question, how do we evaluate and determine what constitutes a credible tier 1 and tier 2 source of evidence? And then their task, like, first, write some questions, like what questions do you have based on the guiding question? And then that's how they would start that research process. I wanted to encourage them to reach out to experts. Like, they don't just have to research in, online or books or things like that. They will develop a 5 to 7 minute presentation, of course, with like lots of scaffolding and support for me. And then they would complete an individual reflection afterward about like how they work together as a team. And I would ask them in that individual reflection to apply some of the learning that they have engaged with about teamwork. And then the rubric, I decided not to use the AP rubric for teamwork yet because it was a little bit heavier than I needed. The Cornell University rubric it's wordy, but I think it's more general and generic. And so it worked better for this particular like initial assignment. But moving forward in the course, we would actually examine the rubric as a class and get to know it. And then I would use that rubric for their future assignments. So that is my Google Classroom. I hope I've explained it clearly enough. I have really enjoyed this course, and I'm excited to use some of these materials in just a few weeks. And I look forward to hopefully working with you and learning from you again soon. So thank you so much.